Okay, so let's explain our ingredients we're going to need. First thing we're going to need is a cup and a quarter of warm water. We're going to need a pack of active dry yeast, which is 2 1/4 teaspoons. We're also going to need 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. We're going to need a half cup of whole wheat flour. We're also going to need a quarter cup of packed brown sugar, firmly packed. 2 teaspoons of molasses. We're going to need 2 teaspoons of salt. We're going to need 5 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and we're only going to use 1 tablespoon up front in the dough, and I'll explain what we're going to do later with the other 4 tablespoons. We're also going to need 4 tablespoons of baking soda, and that's going to be used with 2 quarts of water, which I already have on the stove. We're going to give these a bath after they're baked. And I'll get into that just a little later. And then we're also going to need 4 tablespoons of melted butter, and then some pretzel salt. You can either use pretzel salt, or if you have some coarsely ground salt like sea salt or kosher salt, something that's just coarsely ground would work fine, but I happen to have some pretzel salt on hand. And then just some all-purpose flour just for dusting around on your board so that you can knead your dough. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're going to use a KitchenAid stand mixer today. If you don't have one of these, it's okay. You can use a regular mixer and then just knead your dough if you need to. But it certainly is a lot easier if you can get one of these nice KitchenAids with the dough hook. Really makes it a lot easier on the hands. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and add now our cup and a quarter of warm water, and in there we're going to go ahead and add in our yeast. We're just going to shake that all in there, and then what you want to do is you want to just stir that around a little bit and allow that to soften. So we're going to give that a little bit of a stir. So let's give that just a little bit of time to soften up. Okay, so it's while that's getting softened, I'll go ahead and pull all these other ingredients close by, and we'll start to add them. Okay, now that yeast has softened, we're going to go ahead and start adding in our flours now. So I'm going to go ahead and add in our all-purpose flour first, and we're just going to give that a little bit of a shake here. In. Okay, so we'll put that in, and then we'll go ahead and add in our wheat flour now. Okay, we've got that in. And then I'm going to go ahead and start it up, and we'll just kind of rest that down in there. We're just going to go really gently so we don't end up with flour everywhere. I don't think my wife would be too happy with me about that. So that's on low and mixing in. I'm going to go ahead and mix in our brown sugar. So we'll go ahead and tap that in. And we're going to go ahead and put in our molasses. Get that all in there. I guess I see where the slow as molasses thing comes from. This is some pretty thick stuff to work with. We'll get that all in there. Get the molasses in there. Okay. Pretty close. That'll probably work its way down. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add the salt. And we're also going to add as we talked about earlier, 1 tablespoon of the oil. Let's go ahead and get that in there. And you want to go ahead and keep mixing this dough until it starts to come away from the sides. So we'll just let that keep going. We'll increase that speed up a little bit. You can see it's starting to pull away from the sides now. Now this is going to be a little looser than your normal dough. It's going to be a little bit difficult to work with. That's why you want to go ahead and put your flour down on your surface so that you can work with this without it sticking to you. Now it's starting to stretch out a bit. Okay, I think we're just about where we want it. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to get into the rising portion. So let's go ahead and transfer this now onto a dusted surface. We're going to knead it just a little bit and then we're going to put it in a bowl to rise. Okay, so you can see I've transferred it now to a working surface and it's lightly floured. And again, this is a little bit softer dough. So you don't want to add a ton of all-purpose flour to it, but we do want to get it to where you can at least knead it a bit. So let's go ahead and work it around a little bit. We're going to add a little flour. Again, just a little bit just to keep your hands from sticking to it. And we're going to go ahead and work that in, just enough to get it to stick together a bit. Get this off the board here. A little bit more dough down, or a little bit more flour. Keep everything from sticking. Again, we're just going to knead it in. Just kind of a soft, pliable is what you're looking for, nothing too firm. Here we go. This is where it's handy when you have man hands as opposed to some little dainty hands. You can really get it worked in. So let's go ahead and get this together here. Okay, so right about there, not real tight. You see when you pick it up, it wants to stretch on you. So that's about where you want it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get this in a bowl. And let me grab one here. Just grab a bowl here. And let's go ahead and transfer that in. Let's go ahead and make a little bit of a mound out of it first. Okay. Let's go ahead and transfer it in a bowl. And that's where we're going to let it sit covered. And let's wait for it to rise a bit and then we'll get back into it. Okay, we've been letting this rise now for about a couple of hours actually. We put it into an oven and you can see it's doubled, maybe even 2.5 times its size. So there's no need to punch it down. All you want to do is remove it from your bowl, and we're going to put it on. Probably need to flour out just a little bit here. Not much. You just want to really just kind of get a dusting, just so it doesn't stick, and then go ahead and place it on your surface. Okay, so there we go. Now we want to divide this in thirds, and then we want to divide it in thirds again. So let's just get a little dust here on it, just a little so we can handle it. Okay, and again, there's really no need to punch it down. So I'm going to get a divider here, and divide it into 3 equal parts. So we'll kind of get it to where it looks about the same volume, in a loaf style, if you will. And then let's go ahead and punch this in thirds. So be about like that, and about like that. Pretty close. You can weigh it if you want to, but don't really see a big need to do all that. Again, let's get a little dusting here so this is a little easier to deal with, because again, it's kind of a wet dough. It doesn't set up quite like bread dough does. Okay, so now we're going to go and divide this in thirds again. So here's 1 and 2. Alright, so that gives us some smaller pieces to work with. And then you want to grease yourself a baking pan. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll these out into about a 1/4 inch by 24 inches long. So let's move some of this over and let's see if we can get that. This board going this way is about 24 inches, so let's see what we can do here. Stretch this out. Keep her going. And you know, if it's not quite a 1/4 inch, that's okay. It still works. Okay. 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, kind of your preference. The thicker you have it, of course, the thicker your pretzels are going to be. So, and if you're making pretzel sticks, it's not really necessary to put them into any kind of a shape like a pretzel, but all right, so it looks like we got this just about where we want it. Here's a little bit thick, so we'll stretch it out. Okay, and we're going to make like a horseshoe, if you will. We're going to cross the ends, twist it once, and then raise it up. That's almost twisting it twice to make your pretzel. And then again, they don't have to be perfect. And then mash them down. And then go ahead and just put them on your greased tray. Okay, we're going to do that again. A little bit of here. Probably not the best roller in the world, but I think everybody gets the idea. You kind of have to stretch it as you roll. Keep it going here. And eventually it'll get to the size that you want it. And again, if it isn't a 1/4 inch, if it's more like a 1/2, that's okay. Okay, so there we go. It's about the length you want it. So again, we're going to do a horseshoe. We're going to crisscross it, twist it once, and then back up to make our pretzel. And mash it in. And we're going to lay it over here. And there we go. So I'm going to continue to do this, and when I get them all lined up, we're going to go ahead and let it rest for about another 30 minutes, 45 minutes, because we want these to go ahead and come back up and double in size again. And then the next step we're going to do is to dip these in our baking soda solution. Okay, so we'll be back in just a few. Okay, so as you can see, they've risen. I did make the mistake though of crowding them too much, so they lost their shape, unfortunately. Tried to pick a couple of these up and they've really deflated. So you want to really kind of give yourself plenty of room to begin with. Even use 2 sheets, which I should have done, and that will hold the shapes. These two actually still have a pretty decent shape, as with that one. So anyway, what we're going to do now is going to 4 tablespoons of baking soda that we talked about earlier, with mixing with water. We're just going to give these a slight bath on the top, and once we do that, then we're going to put on some coarse salt. I've currently got my oven heating up to 400 degrees, and so once we get these wetted down on the top, see that one just kind of collapsed almost into a pie, if you will, but that's okay. We'll still eat them, and we'll just get this sprinkled on the top here, and then once we have it, we'll add that salt. That one there just collapsed because I picked it up, because this is a really light dough, but it should it's got a lot of gluten in it, so because it's been it's risen so many times, and make for a nice chewy pretzel. So let's go ahead and finish this up here real quickly, and we'll go ahead and put in our salt. So there's that. Now we got our salt. We'll go ahead and sprinkle the tops of these liberally, depending on what kind of salt, how much salt you like. I personally like quite a bit of salt on mine. Kind of try to get it up on all pieces if you can. Again, another thing with pretzel salt is it won't melt during the baking process like other salts possibly can or will. So it just depends on, you can find these usually, either online. It's not really, salt's inexpensive, and once you have it, you'll have a lot of it for a while because it keeps pretty much forever. So, all right, so I think that is just about ready to go into the oven now, where we have it, and that bath kind of helps this salt stick, if you will, to the pretzels. So, and we'll just kind of give it a good shake onto the rest of it, and whatever doesn't stick, then that's just fine. So there we go. So the next step is we're going to go ahead and pop it into a 400 degree oven for about 8 to 10 minutes total, and you need to watch it to see how it's baking. When it gets that golden brown, that's when you pull them out. So next time you see these, they should be at least pretzel. May not be the pretzel shape that we all love and desire, but they'll be edible. Okay, there they are on the cooling rack, all cooled. They held their shape, most of them, but you can be creative with them, have fun, different shapes. But the best part about them is when you break them open, eat into them, they're nice and pliable, just like a pretzel ought to be, and they're really good. So anyway, have fun. It was a lot of fun making these with you. Take care.